Hey guys, what's going on? It's your boy TheMadKaiger, and up here today, guys, with the next review in the Gears of War series. We have here Gears of War 2. I actually have a physical version of the limited edition here. Just wanted to mention that the limited editions of the Gears of War game are actually fairly cheap. In fact, most of the time, these sell for the same price as the normal version of the game. So if you are a collector, just be aware that getting the limited edition for Gears of War 1, 2 and 3 ain't going to cost you that much money. I don't have a limited edition for 3 or Judgment. I don't even think I have Judgment as a physical version anyway. But we're continuing on with the Gears of War series. I recently finished Gears of War 2 again and started Gears of War 3. We're about halfway through Gears 3, so when I beat that game, I'll probably do the review of Gears 3, even though I've beaten all these games before. Now, straight off the bat, I want to mention Gears of War 2, in my opinion, is probably the least talked about Gears of War game. I know Judgment some people say Judgment was the worst of the Gears of War series, and that might be true, but Gears of War 2 isn't a bad game by any means, but it just seems like when people talk about Gears of War, it's normally the first, or third, or the fifth one people talk about. You don't really see many people talk about Gears of War 2, and it's a shame really, because I recently played through this game, and you know, it actually has a lot of memorable moments. Straight off the bat, I do want to mention that when you play this version of the game and then you've played the ultimate version, just be aware that you are playing it on the Xbox 360 graphics, so it's not updated or anything. So don't be surprised when you play the ultimate edition, then go on to play 2, you see a drop in graphics and stuff. That's not to say that the graphics are bad in any way. They're actually pretty good for the Xbox 360. The Xbox 360 had some pretty decent graphics for its time. Definitely ahead of its time back in the day. Now, Gears of War 2, in my opinion, it was the last Gears of War game that stuck to this sort of that art style that I mentioned in the previous video, where it was gritty, it was dark, it was really sort of, you know, gothic and stuff. Gears of War 2 actually has a bit more variety to it in its campaign. Without spoiling too much, there are quite a few like vehicle segments in the game. There's a part in the game where you're driving a vehicle. There's a part where you're flying on the Reavers. And then there's a part at the end when you're playing on a giant Bruma. You know, those big monsters that I talked about. And overall, it is a very memorable campaign. It's just, for some reason, when I was thinking about it, because I played this game years ago, and the only thing I knew about some parts, and I just had to sort of put together, oh yeah, I remember this, and this game actually did a bit more for the characters as well. Gears of War has never been a series that tried to stray away from its characters. They actually do a pretty good job at developing these characters, especially Dom in this game, who was the second player if you're playing co-op. Obviously, there's a part in the game, without giving away, I don't want to spoiler, that something happened to him, and it did break a lot of hearts back in the day, and it really helped develop the character, and I'm really glad that they did that, because the first game focused more on Marcus, so this game actually does a good job of talking more about the background of both Marcus and Dom, and it gives more depth to the characters. Another thing about this game is that it still had that grittiness to it, and some people might be surprised to see that, you know, it is quite similar in the sense that, you know, you're fighting above ground and then you go underground. This game does have a new boss fight in it, which is the Scourge boss fight, and I've got to say that there is one thing about this game that well, I wouldn't say it was a bad thing, but it was quite glitchy. More happened to my friend than me, so I don't know if it was a connection issue or the game. It happened quite a few times. My friend was getting teleported quite a few times. There was a point here in the game where you're under these because there's actually quite a good variety to this game, and there's a lot of like environmental things, and it's quite creative at times. The first game feels much more grounded, much more basic compared to this one, and this game didn't what I like about this game is that it didn't actually this game feels like a continuation from the second game, but adds just a few amount of things to make it a different game. Except that obviously the story, it only adds a couple of new weapons to the game. You know, it didn't add like hundreds of weapons, like I said. You know, it added a flamethrower, a new pistol, which was like a automatic burst pistol, a new grenade, and new types of enemies like the Cantus, and stuff like that, which were these screaming enemies that could like revive teammates. And then you had like the Scourge boss fight, and it is a memorable game. Probably the most memorable thing about this game was the giant worm. There's a part in the game where you go inside this giant worm and you have to like kill it from the inside. It's very gruesome, and it can make you feel pretty queasy at times, definitely when you get to the final part. I don't want to give it away too much because it's a very memorable thing, and that's what I remembered most about this game. It has a very memorable campaign. Once you play it through, you'll be remembering it for a while. Anyway, back to that glitch thing. My friend, there's a part in the game where you have to like, there's this hail coming down called razor hail, which is basically like glass ice falling from the sky, and obviously you have to stay in cover, like shelter, so you don't get hit by it. And my friend just randomly got teleported into the hail and died, and it happened quite a few times. There was a lot of glitches that was happening to my friend, especially with that boss fight, the Scourge boss fight. My friend would like, I would go down and my friend would get stuck in the chainsaw animation, even though after he had done the chainsaw animation. And we had quite a few rage moments in this game. I'm not going to lie, this game pissed me off a few times, and it's not because the game is bad by any means. It was just the glitches that were really pissing me and my friend off. It definitely has some rage moments in there, especially when you're playing on hardcore. I daren't think about insane. There was a part in the game where you have to like escort this bomb, and you only have your pistol, and you can't, and because you're both carrying this bomb, you can't, like, you have to turn in synchronization. But my friend would just die instantly. It wasn't until we realized that he was actually playing on insane without actually realizing it, and then we managed to get through it pretty easy. Compared to hardcore and insane, it's just crazy because, you know, hardcore is a challenge. It is a challenge, but it's possible. But insane is like, oh. The only Gears of War game I've ever beaten on insane was Gears of War 3, but that was when I was playing with 4 people, me and my friend back in the day. Found a couple of other people online back in the day, and we had a great time, but we beat that on arcade mode, and I'll talk more about Gears of War 3 when we get to it. This game also did add a new mode in the game called Horde Mode, and Horde Mode back in the day, man, this is what started its own genre. Horde Mode was basically a 50-round survival mode, but what made Gears of War's Horde Mode so interesting at the time was Gears of War 2 Horde Mode had nothing. It was just a survival. You had no defenses, no nothing like in the newer games, and that was it. 50 waves. I remember back in the day, me and my friend, what we used to do, I think it was on Blood Gulch, I think the map's called Blood Gulch or Blood Drive, I can't remember, something like that. And we would go in this room, and when the Maulers would come in, Maulers were a new type of enemy. They had like these giant shields, and when you killed them, you could pick their shields up and you could plant them in the ground, which would basically keep them staying in a position, and you could use them as cover. And what we used to do is we used to actually plant them by this doorway, and we'd just have loads of enemies trying to get through, because only the basic like drones and soldier enemies could actually kick down the shield, so they couldn't get through. It was a cheap tactic, but it was the sort of thing you had to do back in the day. I remember the Gears of War 2 multiplayer being a bit more popular as well, added some new modes, as well as this game actually had some unlockables as well in the game. You do have like a leveling up system, and you could unlock characters from, you know, one cool thing is if you had beaten Gears of War 1, you would unlock 3 characters from Gears of War 1. I think you would unlock Carmine, Kim, and someone else. But again, like I said, going back to the campaign, back to that character development, Gears of War has never been one to hold back from killing off like the good guys. And, you know, it's crazy because without spoiling too many things, because I don't really want to spoil the story, because these games are worth playing for their story. The gameplay, it is more gameplay over story, I will say. It's about 60-40. I'd say 60% is better gameplay and 40% story. But you just see some really dark things in this game, and like when the main characters die, even though they're good guys, you just don't expect that, especially with one character in the game. You don't expect that. But overall, this game is completely a memorable game, and I think this game is probably the most underrated of the Gears of War series. Like I said, those glitches, I don't know if they were just because of connection issues or it was the game. Like I said, there were some rage moments, especially on some of those boss fights, because there was some things like where the boss will cut down these pillars, and even though I was nowhere near them, somehow they would hone in on me. My friend kept saying I keep seeing the pillars land on me, even though I was nowhere near them. They're like honing in on me, and it is a great game. Don't get me wrong, but this is the game. I'm going to be honest with you. We had a lot of rage in this game. If you watch my streams on the Mixer, you'll see what I mean. Like I said, I don't know if it was because we were just getting overwhelmed or if it was the glitches. It was a bit of both, really. Me and my friend do have this sort of rage between each other kind of thing. If you're wondering what the limited edition has, I have actually done an unboxing of this, I think. Well, it comes with an art book, bonus DVD, a photo steelbook, and you've got a golden Lancer skin for the multiplayer. And also, I do want to mention that there was an extra story mission in this game as a downloadable. I don't know how it originally came out. I think it was a downloadable thing called the deleted scene. Now, there's a point in the game where when you're inside, toward the end of the game, where you're inside the Locust base, and Marcus basically says, "Oh, do you want to go in guns blazing, or I found another way in?" And it baffled a lot of players at the time, because the game just made you go guns blazing, and you think, wait a minute, Marcus made this suggestion, how come they didn't give you the option? Now, in the deleted scene, they basically let you do that stealth option. But I just want to mention something before I talk about what that stealth option is available. It makes me laugh, because in the deleted scene, it's its own thing, right? You just click on it and you play it, right? But it still gives you the option to go guns blazing. And it makes me laugh, because why would you choose guns blazing if you've already played the main campaign and you've done that guns blazing option anyway? It made me laugh that they still gave you that option. I think what originally happened is they were going to have both the scenes available, and probably they just didn't do it. But it's cool that they did put it in the game anyway. Like I said, I don't remember if it was a downloadable only thing, or if it was an update or what. I don't know how it worked. But what's really cool is I did try the deleted scene, and I got a bit pissed off, because how it works is you put on the Theron Elite armor, and you basically have to walk through the area, and they've got like patrolling enemies, and basically what happens, you have to just walk through and avoid the enemies, because they can basically smell you. So if you get too close, they find out who you are, and that's it. We didn't actually get through it. I tried it just to see what it was, just so I could do it for the purpose of this review. It was a cool option to do. It would have been cool if they would have just put it in the game itself rather than its own thing. But it's there if you want to try something a bit different. But to be honest, Gears of War, in my opinion, is not really a stealth game. Maybe if you were playing on Insane at the time, and you thought, oh shit, I'm playing on Insane, I'm gonna do it's pretty hard. If you're playing solo on Insane, the option to do both at the time probably would have been a really good thing. You probably would have wanted to do that stealth option so you could progress through the game a little bit easier. Because the Locust part of the game, the Locust base, is probably the toughest part in the game anyway, because that's where most of the enemies are. Well, you're in their base, so what do you expect? I always found it weird, though, how, 2 guys, 2 to 4 guys can take down go through this entire base full of hundreds and thousands of enemies, and somehow still manage to come out on top. It just makes me laugh. Gears of War is the ultimate meta game. We got these big guys in giant armor with steroids and blood and violence and explosions, Michael Bay movie style, man. yeah, Gears of War is one of them joke kind of things, you know. How come in a game where there's no food and the shit around the world, these people are still pretty buff, you know what I mean? Even if you work out, you ain't gonna get buff unless you eat, right? Just one of them jokes amongst Gears of War gamers, I guess. But overall, I digress. Gears of War 2, in my opinion, it's a great game. You can forgive the glitches that I had. Like I said, it might not happen to anyone else. It might have just been a one-time thing. And it is a challenging game, but then again, when you play on the harder difficulties, don't be surprised if you die quite a few times. It's the choice you make. I'm going to be honest with you. When I play games, on my own, I tend to go on the easy mode. And I know a lot of people might think, oh, what the point that busy and all this stuff. But I'm going to be honest with you. I prefer to play on the easier difficulties in games because I like to be able to play through a game and just play through it at my pace. And, you know, there are games that don't have difficulty or have progressive difficulty and leveling up difficulty, you know, like the Elder Scrolls games and well, maybe not Elder Scrolls, but like you know, games like Kingdom Hearts or like these leveling up games like Dragon Age and Mass Effect and stuff, Borderlands, for example. I tend to play on the easier difficulties on my own because I like to be able to play through a game, just beat it. And then if I want to come back and play it on the harder difficulty, I can do so. But when I do co-op with my friends, we tend to go, we try to go on the harder difficulty. Not the hardest difficulty. We like to have a bit of a challenge because it gives, you know, it certainly is a bit more interesting playing on harder difficulties in co-op games because I just think there's a little bit more fun to be had when doing it with a friend. But then again, that's just how I do it. Don't be ashamed if you play games on easy because if a game weren't meant to have easy on there, they wouldn't put it on there. Just so everyone can play a game at their own pace. Whether you want to play the game on the hardest difficulty and being challenged and rage out, that's your own thing. But if you just want a fun experience and just experience the story and have a bit of fun here and there, then the easy modes are there for you. Gears of War has always had 4 difficulties up until Gears of War 5, I think. Gears of War 4 and 5 had a harder difficulty, Inconceivable, I think it was, which was like even worse than insane, so I dread even trying that mode. But I digress. Gears of War has always held a special place in my heart because, you know, these were games that I grew up with back in the Xbox 360 days. And Gears of War 2, it definitely holds up in the series, but I just feel like nobody talks about Gears of War 2 that much. The Horde Mode back in the day was a great time, and overall the game is absolutely fantastic. If I was to give this game a rating, I'd probably give it again an 8 out of 10, maybe an 8.5 out of 10. It is a fantastic game. It still holds up, even with those glitches in there. But again, what do you expect? And as well, anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Feel free to leave a like and of course comment below. Let me know what you think of Gears of War 2. Upcoming next will be Gears of War 3, my favourite of all of the Gears of War 3 games. It's always been my favourite, and I'll explain why when we do that video. And of course guys, feel free to subscribe if you haven't already and follow me on Twitter, Instagram and Mixer at TheMadKaiger. We'll be continuing on Gears of War 3 tonight. Like I said, we've beaten the halfway mark now, so we're coming towards, hopefully we can get it beat tonight and hopefully do the DLC and some beast mode and stuff. But and of course guys, as always, have a nice day and I will see you in the next video. Take care and bye bye.